One of the hardest truths that you'll ever realize in this life is you don't escape commitment. You only choose what you commit to. And many don't understand that. They think avoiding discipline means freedom. They think avoiding responsibility means peace. They think quitting something hard means life becomes easier. But in my experience, that's not how life works. Because if you don't commit to what matters, you will eventually become committed to what drains you. And that's the trade that most people never realize that they're making. If you don't commit to growth, you commit to stagnation. If you don't commit to healing, you commit to carrying the same pain through every season of life. If you don't commit to discipline, you commit to living at the mercy of your emotions. Either way, life demands commitment. You're always committing to something, even when you think you're avoiding it altogether. Because avoidance is still a direction. Inaction is still a decision. And every repeated decision, whether intentional or unconscious, it eventually becomes a life. That means your future is not only being built by what you pursue, it's also being built by what you continue tolerating. A lot of people spend years trying to avoid commitment because they think commitment boxes them in, it limits them. They want to keep their options open. But what they don't realize is a lack of commitment eventually closes more doors than commitment ever will. Because the person who never commits deeply to anything rarely experiences depth in anything. Surface relationships, surface purpose, surface growth, surface discipline, and surface identity. And they become emotionally scattered, always interested, but rarely transformed. And I want you to hear this. Transformation requires sustained contact, and sustained contact requires commitment. You cannot build a meaningful life constantly leaving the door open to escape discomfort. At some point, you have to stay long enough for something to actually shape you. People think quitting removes pressure, but quitting doesn't remove pressure, it actually transfers it. The pressure of discipline gets replaced by the pressure of regret. The pressure of growth gets replaced by the pressure of stagnation. The pressure of consistency gets replaced by starting over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually you're just tired because now you're not just carrying difficulty, you're carrying disappointment in yourself. And there's a different kind of pain that comes from knowing that you've abandoned something that you care deeply about. Not because you couldn't do it, but because you stopped staying connected to it long enough to see it through. And that's the dangerous thing about that pain. It slowly changes the way that you see yourself. Because the truth is, every unfinished commitment leaves behind evidence. Evidence that says, well, maybe I don't follow through. Evidence that says maybe you always quit. Evidence that says maybe consistency just isn't who you are. And it's not through one failure, but through a repeated disconnection from what matters to you. Every life comes with a price. That's the part that nobody escapes. And the question is not, will it be hard? The real question is, which hard am I willing to live with? Because as I've heard it said, discipline is hard, but hey, so is staying stuck. Growth is hard, but so is regret. Having uncomfortable conversations, it's hard, but so is living disconnected from the people that you love. Taking care of your body, it's hard, but feeling uncomfortable in your own body is hard too. I could keep going. Saving money is hard, but living under financial pressure is hard too. Doing the work to heal is hard, but carrying that old you into a new relationship that's ruining things is hard too. Maturity is realizing there is no path that removes discomfort from your life. There are only paths that create different kinds of discomfort. Some discomfort creates growth, other discomfort creates decay. And most people unknowingly choose decay because decay feels easier in the short term, always. But that's the deception. The easier choice now often creates a heavier life later. The harder choice now often creates a freer life later. Most destructive patterns survive because they provide immediate emotional relief. That's why people procrastinate. That's why people avoid difficult conversations. That's why people stay inconsistent. The brain becomes addicted to temporary comfort. But temporary comfort often creates permanent consequences. And that's the trap, because short-term relief can feel so convincing in the moment. Sometimes it's so convincing that you don't even notice the long-term costs until years later and you look back. And by then, you're not fighting the original problem anymore. You're fighting accumulated neglect, accumulated delay, accumulated inconsistency. And accumulation works both ways. Small disciplines compound, but so do small avoidances. And the truth is, nobody plans to become disconnected from themselves. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, you know what, today, I hope to slowly abandon everything that matters to me. It's not how it happens. It's more gradual than that. It happens quietly, one compromise at a time. You stop working on the dream because you got discouraged. You stop taking care of your body because now you're busy. You stop believing in your potential because disappointment became repetitive. And then eventually, you stop expecting much from yourself at all. It's one of the saddest places a person can arrive emotionally. Not failure, but resignation, waving the white flag. Because resignation quietly convinces people, this is just who I am now. And once someone stops believing that change is possible, they stop fighting for their future. That's why staying committed matters so much. Commitment keeps possibility alive. It keeps movement alive. It keeps identity from collapsing into hopelessness. I remember talking to someone who told me, I just want life to feel easier. And if I'm being honest, I understood exactly what they meant. They were tired. They're tired of trying, tired of pushing, tired of feeling behind. So little by little, they stopped committing to the things that they cared about. Stop going to the gym consistently. Stop pursuing the business idea. Stop doing the difficult inner work. Stop showing up fully. And at first, it felt like a relief. It always does. Hey, less pressure, less effort, less responsibility, let's go. But over time, that temporary belief became a different kind of pain, because now they felt disconnected from themselves. Now they felt frustrated watching the time pass. Now they carried the emotional weight of knowing they were capable of more, but no longer living in alignment with it. It's one of the heaviest feelings a person can carry, knowing you're betraying your own potential in slow motion. And the reason it's heavy is because deep down, you know your spirit was built for more than survival. Yeah. You know you were meant to grow. You know you were meant to build. You were meant to develop. You were meant to become. And when your daily life disconnects from that inner knowing, frustration begins growing internally. It's not because you hate yourself, but because part of you knows that you were meant to move forward in life. Life always collects payment. You either pay through discipline or you pay with interest through disappointment. You either pay through growth or you pay with interest through being stuck. You either pay through uncomfortable honesty or you pay with interest through years of internal frustration and pretending everything is okay. But one way or another, there's always a cost attached to life. And the people who change their lives are not the ones that are usually found on the easier path. They are the people who became honest enough to choose their hard intentionally. That's wisdom. It's wisdom when you stop asking, how do I avoid discomfort? And start asking, what discomfort produces the life that I want? And this is where things get deeper, because most people don't quit because they stop caring. People quit because the emotional weight of the process became heavier than the connection to the purpose. That's important to understand, because when people say, I lost motivation, what they really mean is the process stopped rewarding me emotionally. That excitement faded, that visible progress slowed, that discomfort became repetitive. And they interpret emotional resistance as a sign to stop. But the problem is, everything meaningful eventually becomes difficult. Relationships, healing, growth, purpose, discipline, dreams. Because meaningful things require identity and not just emotions. In fact, I would say identity is built in seasons where emotion is absent. That's why commitment matters. It carries you when feelings cannot. There's a difference in being interested in something and being devoted to it. Interesting people show up when it feels exciting. Devoted people show up when it feels repetitive. Interested people are emotionally attached to outcomes. Devoted people are structurally attached to the process. And the reason devotion changes lives while interest doesn't is because devotion survives moods. The people who build extraordinary lives are extraordinary in sustained alignment. They stay connected long enough for repetition to transform them. So this means that committed people think differently. They stop asking, how do I avoid difficulty? And start asking, which difficulty leads to something meaningful? And that change in language means that discipline is no longer a punishment. It's an investment. Consistency is no longer a restriction, it's alignment. Sacrifice is no longer loss, it's part of the construction process. And suddenly, hard things stop feeling pointless because they are connected to something that is much deeper than emotion. Now the pain has purpose, the repetition has meaning, and the sacrifice has direction. One of the things that we have to come up against, and it's something that I've had to fight myself, is the trap of restarting. You know what really exhausts people? Restarting, starting over every Monday, rebuilding momentum every month, recreating discipline every new year. It drains you because every time you quit, you don't return to neutral. You return carrying some extra baggage, some internal frustrations, some self-doubt, the emotional memory of another unfinished commitment. And eventually, you stop trusting yourself, not because you're incapable, but because inconsistency has become a rehearsed identity. So commitment matters not just for results, but for my self-respect. Because every time we stay aligned when things are difficult, we reinforce trust within ourselves. And once you trust yourself, you stop needing constant emotional motivation to move. And I'm taking my time on this one today because this video is a wake-up call for a particular somebody watching me. And if you're that somebody, I want to say to you, every decision you repeat is building something. Every habit is shaping your future. Every routine is training an identity. And whether intentional or not, you are always becoming something or someone. You're not avoiding commitment. Even avoidance is creating the future. Even procrastination is creating a future. Even inconsistency is creating your future. So the question that I ask you is, will the future you're building make you proud? Or will the future you're building right now make you wonder what could have happened if I had only stayed committed? So one day that future is going to stop being theoretical. And eventually you're going to wake up inside the life that your repeated choices created. And in that moment, you're going to realize your small daily decisions were never actually small. They were building destiny quietly the entire time. And maybe that's the realization that somebody listening to me needs today. The goal is not to find a life without difficulty. The goal is to choose a difficulty that creates meaning instead of regret. Choose the pain that builds you instead of the pain that slowly empties you. One pain leaves you stronger, while the other leaves you wondering what could have been. And I imagine there's no heavier regret than meeting the version of you that you could have become and realizing that you kept abandoning them halfway through the process. So this week, I want you to stop asking, how do I make this easier? Instead, ask yourself, what am I becoming committed to through my repeated choices? What pain am I avoiding right now? And what is that pain avoidance going to create later? What matters enough to stay connected to, even though it's difficult, it's hard, it's challenging? Or maybe, what would my life look like if I stopped restarting? What version of me is my current routine reinforcing? Are you building a future intentionally or accidentally? You're not choosing between hard and easy. You're choosing between two futures. And if you don't stick with what you care about, you will eventually be stuck with what you don't. And the quality of your future will always be hidden in what you repeatedly stay committed to every day. Always remember that growth is a journey. It's not a destination. I'm in it with you. And I will see you on the next one.